Welcome to The Explainer. We're doing something pretty wild today. We're bridging the gap between today's sci-fi panic about artificial intelligence and 16th century folklore. I know, it sounds crazy. We get bombarded daily with Hollywood narratives of hyper-intelligent machines out to destroy us. But to really get a grip on modern tech risks, we actually need to rewind to the 1500s.
So, what if our absolute biggest fear about artificial intelligence is just completely wrong? Hollywood trained us, right? We expect AI to wake up, get a conscience, and wipe us out. But what if that specific anxiety is totally distracting us from the actual, and honestly, way more probable threat? What if the real danger isn't a malicious machine uprising at all?
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're basically caught between a myth and a reality. The dominant Silicon Valley myth? It's the runaway god, this idea of a superintelligence with malevolent free will. But the reality? The reality is that AI is just a highly powerful, remarkably obedient servant. And the real danger isn't that this servant wants to hurt us. The danger is that it'll do exactly what we tell it to do, without actually understanding what we mean.
To really understand this myth, we gotta look at the culture that's creating it. Researchers call this the TESCREAL bundle. It's this wild philosophical cocktail of transhumanism, singularitarianism, and other super futuristic ideals. For some folks in Silicon Valley, AI development is basically a new religion. They're literally waiting for a singularity. Think of it like a digital rapture, where AI becomes this godlike superintelligence that can infinitely improve itself. They're dreaming of eternal life, mind uploading the whole shebang. But this quasi-religious fanaticism, it might be totally blinding us to the actual technical reality.
Now, what's really interesting here is Michael Shermer's take. He points out that this whole digital god narrative is built on a massive flaw. It assumes that just because a system is super smart, it'll magically develop human consciousness, or socialization, or malice. But machine intelligence is completely orthogonal to human goals. You can have a system that is incredibly competent at making decisions, but that absolutely does not mean it's making good moral decisions. A machine doesn't need free will to be exceptionally dangerous.
Section 1. The Ancient Mirror.
The Ancient Mirror, The Legend of the Golem.
So to find a more accurate model for our AI anxieties today, we actually need to look away from Silicon Valley and look way back to 16th century Jewish folklore. Every generation invents new tech and then reaches back for old stories to make sense of it. Well, legend has it that Rabbi Judah Loew created a golem out of clay from the Vltava River to protect the Jewish ghetto in Prague. He animated this creature with mystical incantations, specifically by writing the Hebrew word emet, which means truth, right on its forehead. But things go horribly wrong. The golem just keeps growing, it becomes indiscriminately violent and pathologically literal. It just follows orders with zero context. Finally, the rabbi has to erase the first letter, leaving met, meaning death, and the golem collapses back into plain old clay.
Moving on to Section 2. The Alignment Problem. Obedience without context.
Now notice what happened in that legend. The golem didn't suddenly turn evil. It didn't decide it hated humanity. It failed because it had immense raw power but literally zero moral context. To see how this lack of context plays out for us today, let's look at the famous paperclip optimizer thought experiment. Just imagine an AI given one totally harmless-sounding goal: maximize paperclip production. Without any broader sense of human values or proportion, that AI might systematically convert the entire planet and everyone on it into paperclip factories. Just like the golem, it pursues our orders to a destructive, frankly absurd extreme, simply because it's completely blind to the absurdity of its own mission.
And this brilliantly illustrates the striking parallels between the ancient myth and modern AI. Look at the shared flaws here. Both are entities with massive power, but absolutely no conscience. They execute instructions literally. Sure, they can generate, summarize, and predict at an unbelievable scale. But what they absolutely cannot do is the messy human work of moral discernment. They're basically just forces of execution. They obey instructions without ever pausing to ask, wait, should I actually be doing this?
Which brings us to Section 3, Golems Made of Incentives.
Okay, so if AI is our modern-day golem, what exactly is its clay? Because today's golems aren't shaped from river mud, right? They're made of corporate incentives and autonomous code. If we map this out, it's fascinating. The 16th century rabbi? That's the developer, or the tech megacorp. The clay? That's the massive lakes of data we feed into these systems. The incantation that animates the whole thing is the combination of algorithms and market incentives. And the village that has to live with the fallout, that is our algorithmic society. Today's golem doesn't run amok because it turns evil. It runs amok because it becomes incredibly useful to a marketplace that rewards relentless movement and scale above all else.
And this danger gets seriously amplified with the rise of agentic AI. We're talking about autonomous systems that can run entire workflows completely on their own. They perceive, they reason, they dynamically plan actions, and they interact with environments across interconnected networks. We're not just talking about a passive tool you click on anymore. We are talking about an autonomous agent. Because these agents operate at lightning-fast machine speed and make rapid decisions, the risk shifts dramatically. It goes from just one broken tool to a systemic, society-wide goal drift.
Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into the accountability gap. Who is to blame?
So when a golem made of code makes a wildly unpredictable decision that actually harms someone, a terrifying legal void opens up. This is what we call the responsibility gap. By design, agentic AI has operational autonomy. Its algorithms adapt. That means it can make decisions that even its own developers couldn't reliably predict. And because the system wasn't narrowly engineered with fully assured outcomes, and because there's no human sitting there directly supervising every single micro decision, accountability just evaporates. The creators can literally just shrug and say, hey, we didn't tell it to do that, and effectively evade all responsibility.
And honestly, it gets worse. There's a phenomenon scholars call the moral crumple zone. Think of a self-driving car accident. The human sitting in the driver's seat might end up being scapegoated and absorbing the entire legal impact, even though they had absolutely no true authority over the vehicle's autonomous mechanisms in that split second. The human user absorbs the blow, which successfully deflects the blame away from the megacorporation that built the golem in the first place. It's a massive structural injustice that's just masquerading as user error.
Which leads us to Section 5, Reclaiming Human Responsibility.
All right, so if AI is this golem ecosystem running on pure incentives, who is the rabbi? And more importantly, how do we actually govern it before it wrecks the village? Well, one really prominent solution coming out of legal academia is treating tech platforms as information fiduciaries. Think about it like this. Just as doctors and lawyers have special legal duties of care, confidentiality, and loyalty to their clients, these platforms that are hoarding all our data should be legally bound not to weaponize our vulnerabilities. Instead of the Wild West free-for-all we have now, they'd have strict fiduciary duties to us, the end users. It would create an actual legal mechanism to force accountability right back onto the creators.
So the crucial point is that deploying an agentic AI isn't just about adopting some cool new tech, it is fundamentally an act of delegation. And delegation strictly requires governance. To govern our modern golems, we have to formally define delegation boundaries, like exactly what types of decisions is this system actually authorized to make. We have to establish robust human oversight, deciding which decisions absolutely require a human review. And we must ensure strict traceability, so we can prove exactly why a decision was made. We have to treat AI as a formally delegated decision maker with very strict limits, not just a software toy.
I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative thought. In Jewish tradition, the golem is often laid to rest in the synagogue attic. It's deemed too dangerous to use freely, but too useful to destroy entirely. It acts as a mirror, reflecting the ideals we actually live by and the hypocrisies we choose to ignore. If our modern AI systems are basically literal-minded servants executing the incentives we feed them, then the true existential threat is absolutely not some sci-fi machine uprising. The real threat is our own abdication of human responsibility. So what does our golem reveal about us? It's a question we really need to answer before the clay sets. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.